Welcome to another episode of Wild Cruising. If you've been finding these new videos helpful, please consider subscribing with the notification bell on, as it really does help our channel out. Today the topic is, should you be taking a refund or a future cruise credit if your upcoming cruise is canceled? If your cruise has been canceled, the cruise line will give you two options: to take a full refund back to your original form of payment, or take your refund in the form of a future cruise credit. That is basically like a gift card that can only be used on the cruise line for a defined period of time, normally 2 years from the time that it's issued. Some cruise lines are even offering an incentive to take it in the form of a future cruise credit and giving you 125% of the value that you paid for your cruise if you'll take it in the form of these vouchers to be used with the cruise line. You can only get a refund if the cruise line itself cancels the cruise. So if you're getting nervous, or you know that the cruise in all practicality will be canceled, let's say your cruise is leaving next week and you know no ports are open and you can't fly to the destination, clearly the cruise is going to be canceled. So if you decide that you want to cancel it and you call them up, you will be basically the same penalties you would at any other cruise, where you're going to pay a cancellation or a move penalty to the cruise line and get whatever's left in the form of a future cruise credit. However, if you wait until your sailing date, or until the cruise line decides to cancel cruises up until that sailing date, you are then eligible for a full refund, since the cruise line itself canceled the cruise and not you. So if you're looking to get a full refund, make sure that you wait until the cruise line cancels if you know for a fact, or with a high likelihood, that that is going to happen, as basically any cruise leaving over the next several weeks, that will be the case, or at least it's a safe bet. Cruise lines would prefer that you take it in the form of a future cruise credit, of course, as then the cash flow stays with the cruise line and they get to take your money and make interest on it. Now, the incentive of getting extra money in the form of the future cruise credits can sound good on paper, but make sure that you're aware of what you're getting and what you can use it for. So for instance, right now, if you take 125% future cruise credit, you're confident you're going to be cruising the moment that they let you. That sounds great, but just be aware that as of now, cruises that are leaving 6 months from now, a year from now, have gone up significantly in price, on average 50 to 100%. So that 125% cruise credit is, you're still going to actually have to pay money out of your pocket. Obviously, pricing is going to be changing and in high fluctuation, and maybe prices will drop down significantly when the industry opens up to try to get more people on the ships. But just know that it won't necessarily be the same price that you're paying today, especially if you try to book something right now. The other thing to keep in mind is that the future cruise credit is normally distributed on a per person basis. So you won't get, let's say that you paid $4,000 for your cruise for 3 people. You won't get a single cruise credit for $4,000 or the 125%. You're going to get the cruise credit split amongst the people and what they paid for the cruise. So if your second guest was 30% off, or 50% off, you're going to get whatever the amount was minus port taxes and fees that person paid for on your original invoice. And it's important to note that, because when you go to book your next cruise, some of those values may change, or maybe one of the people on your current cruise won't be able to go on the second cruise. That value has to be used by that person in that name. So if the exact same people won't be on your next itinerary, make sure you have that in mind, because that money will just go away, meaning you won't get it in any form. And likewise, if the new promotions don't line up the same way, you may end up with one person who has $200 of cruise credit they don't need on the next booking, and that money would just go away. You don't get any unused portion back in the form of cash. So while they are good offers and something to pay attention to, you also need to make sure that it's the right fit for you, because there are some stipulations that can impact whether or not you're actually going to get the value out of it that it appears at first glance on paper. The second thing to consider is whether or not the future cruise credit will have any value. If any of the cruise lines do file for any form of reorganization, or they go out of business, obviously your money goes away with that as a debt that would be largely written off, and the odds of you collecting on it would be quite slim. So it's not to say that any of these cruise lines will go out of business, but certainly the longer that they're not allowed to sail, the more you have to think of that as a potential outcome. And even if they still stay operating, maybe the cruise line just reorganizes under a slightly different name. Maybe they reorganize under a form of bankruptcy protection. They may still be offering sailings in 6 months from now, but the credit you had with them may be worth nothing. So if you are at all concerned about that, I would seriously consider just taking the cash refund. And there's like another couple reasons to take the cash refund. One is if you know you're not going to be cruising for a year, why have the cruise line earning interest on your money? That could be money sitting in your bank account as a rainy day fund for you to be earning interest on. Not that there's a lot of interest to be earned these days, but better in your bank account than theirs is my opinion. The other option is if you have the money in your account, no matter what happens with the cruise line, you have the most flexibility. That money, if you don't need it, can just be sitting in your savings account, set aside for your next vacation, whether that's with a cruise line or maybe you decide that you'd rather take a trip somewhere else. And conversely, if you need that money for something else, if something else comes up during these periods where you're stuck at home, wouldn't you rather have that $4,000 sitting in your bank account? Now remember, if you do decide that you opt for a refund, that the e-refunds are not instantaneous and is normally measured in weeks and oftentimes more than a month before you'll get your refund issued. So please bear that in mind. Don't wait until the last possible minute thinking that that emergency day fund is accessible and the cruise line's just holding it for you. Because if you do need it next week, when you ask for that refund, it's not going to come quickly. So would I take a refund or would I take the future cruise credit? Me personally, I would take the refund. But everybody's got a different level of comfort, and some people want to have that money. They've already paid for the cruise, let it ride, get more value potentially if they play those odds correctly, wait till the prices come down, apply those future cruise credits. And if you fall in that camp, there's nothing wrong with that. Me personally, I would take the money, but I like having my cash at the ready, versus having other people hold the money. But whatever you're comfortable with is the right choice. We just want you to have a better understanding of what options are available to you and what the impacts might be, good or bad, so that you can make an informed decision. Again, I hope everybody is doing well. I hope the situation improves dramatically over the coming weeks. Please consider subscribing if you like this content.